So I've always found this idea of finding the balance to be really useful, really, really useful. And you may have heard people talk about the Tao or the middle way. I just think in general it's a really useful concept, idea, area to reflect upon, because it can be incredibly beneficial to reflect upon. In general, if you're struggling with things at times, or maybe there's a particular situation that you're finding more difficult, it can be really useful to just reflect and consider this idea of finding the balance. Where perhaps are there some imbalances? Where can you perhaps bring things a bit more back into balance? What could you do, to kind of achieve that sense of balance a bit more? I think it's invaluable, really invaluable. And it might be that there's different ways to reflect, obviously, and you may just be thinking about it. Journaling can be a really useful way, to sort of write some things down and reflect upon a few things, and also, of course, talking to people and just sort of having a conversation about things. If you feel that you're able to talk to somebody about some of these things, or what perhaps you might be finding a bit more difficult, or just generally just about finding the balance and living more in balance with things. And I think having conversations can be useful as well, because of course it can you can quite sort of spontaneously discuss ideas and learn from others in the moment. And you'll learn, I'm sure, as well, when you're talking things through yourself. Just hearing yourself talk about it will help you to sort of reflect and learn as you go along. So, I think definitely. I think one other thing to say as well is that, often with mental health and trauma, there can be just such a desperation at times to look for solutions, and I think also at times to really want something really quite significant to change, so that there's a significant positive change. If you're really struggling at times, especially, and that's absolutely understandable, of course, and just completely natural, given what you're dealing with, and how much you'll be potentially struggling at times. But I think sometimes it can actually also really be the little things that can actually make a very big difference, and especially over time, and they can really add up. And I do definitely believe in sort of the idea of marginal gains, and the little 1%ers, or even 0.1%ers here and there. It might at the time seem almost irrelevant, and you may think, well, just how is it going to make any difference? You haven't got the energy to be dealing with all these sort of like tiny little 0.5%, 1%, this and that all the time. But I do think there's definitely something in that, so I would definitely reflect upon that. And I think in that sense, this idea of finding the balance and reflecting upon it can be really useful, because it may not be, of course, that this sounds like something that is going to give you a really big solution, or a big positive change or anything, to just reflect upon finding the balance. But as I say, I think it can actually be a lot more useful than you might perhaps initially consider. and also it can be pretty much, I think, applied to anything. Any situation, anything you're struggling with. It's incredibly applicable. I'd go pretty much as far as saying that it is universally applicable. It may not always be obvious or clear where things are perhaps a bit more out of balance in certain situations or with certain struggles, but it's always something I think you can reflect upon, and you may just find that with a bit of time and a bit of space to reflect upon something, that it kind of just gives you a little insight, or a little idea, or a little positive sort of perspective on, a new perspective perhaps on a situation, and then in turn something that you could perhaps do differently, or you can maybe attempt to approach in a different way. Definitely not one to be underestimated, and perhaps spend a little bit of time, just trying to practice reflecting upon finding the balance, and and looking at where maybe you can be a bit more balanced in the way that you're living day to day, and in different situations, etc. So good luck, and interested to hear if it's useful for you.